Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, yo! I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter for Buha's Block, and welcome to another episode. On today's show, I am thrilled to be joined by Raj Chipalu of SB Nation, Lakers Detailed, Lakers Lounge. He's everywhere, a rising star in the industry. Raj, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It was exciting to kind of experience my first home opener, so that was pretty cool to be there. Never got to see.
How was it? Walk us through it.
It was amazing, honestly, and I don't think TV or just watching on television does enough justice to the difference between preseason and the regular season. And this isn't just with the players. It's from every employee. It's from the security that's, gone up. You walk in and the buzz is way more palpable in a regular season game. And then seeing Steph Curry warm up, you just felt the stakes, and it felt like a playoff game. Just an incredible environment to be a part of. I stayed on the court, Jovan, as late as I could until Crypto turned the lights off. So no, it was an awesome experience and something I kind of recommend everybody to do. And Lakers Warriors, I mean, even with LeBron out, you just can't get more buzz than that in the building with the amount of superstars that were involved. Just an amazing experience.
It's become, I don't want to say a rivalry because I don't think it's quite a rivalry, but with Northern California versus Southern California, LA versus San Francisco, going to a bunch of games up there at Chase Center. There's a bunch of Laker fans in the crowd. As we heard last night, there was a bunch of Warriors fans in attendance when they were going on that run at various points of the second half. So it's maybe like they probably need to play each other in the playoffs one or two more times during this kind of stretch here to make it more of a rivalry, because I think that's the barometer is like you got to play. Like I think Lakers Nuggets was closer to being a rivalry just because of the playoff history, in my opinion. I think that's like the foundation for that bad blood rivalry. But it's, to your point, like they've had some great regular season matchups. They obviously had the play-in a couple times. They had the 2023 playoff series. So it has been a really fun matchup over the last like half decade or so. And of course, the primary backdrop has been the LeBron-Steph rivalry, which that one I will say with the finals and the playoff appearances is a true one. But so Lakers lost 119 to 109. I've rewatched the game now 1.5 times. That's about as much as I can take, although I will say that the film, I think, does the Lakers some justice in terms of it's not as bad. As guys said today at practice, Jared Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent were saying the film was not as bad as it seemed maybe in the moment. I agree with that, but I know you've rewatched parts of the game. What do you think is like a silver lining other than the obvious of Luka? Like I think that one's obvious, right? 43 points. He looked amazing, looked like potentially the best player in the world.
Yeah.
So putting Luka aside, outside of that, what do you think was the biggest silver lining for LA from this game?
Yeah, I think, not to bring Luka into it, but I think we do have an explosive backcourt, and that's something that, not just with Luka, but I think that's something the Lakers can rely on, right? And I think without LeBron, you're going to have to find stuff that you can rely on night to night, and we're kind of figuring out, and sadly, we're figuring out on the fly what that is, right? You would have liked to figure that out a few, preseason games in, but I think you do have a backcourt that's super explosive. You mentioned Luka, but I think Austin's ability to get to the basket, especially, he's talked about all summer how he's gotten stronger, he's added muscle. I thought that really showed in this game. A bunch of times where he was the one kind of giving the contact, getting into that mid-range area, and both he and Luka were awesome kind of in that mid-range type of place, scoring in the paint, getting to the rim. And both those guys, and Jimmy Butler is one of these guys as well, which I'm sure we'll get into, but both those guys get to the line when they want, right? Austin and Luka both have a pretty strong whistle, as much as us Laker fans kind of look at other teams' whistles. Luka and Austin get a really good whistle, and they're able to kind of leverage that. I think those two are something you can really rely on. And from there, I think we do have some pieces off the bench that you have to find different places for, but I liked what Smart shown. I thought he was really solid in his minutes. But for me, just watching, but in totality, our backcourt looks like something we can rely on. Ayton is still a question mark to me. I thought he would struggle against the Warriors, but I thought he found bits and pieces where in the pick and roll they can find spots. When I was looking back at some of the plays, Ayton was more open, Jovan, than I think even the guards kind of figured out later. And I think that's some of the stuff they found in the film, that there's some places for pocket passes where you can find Ayton and give him some mid-range jumpers rather than waiting for him to get to the rim and kind of throwing a lob there. So those were kind of my positives from the game.
I was listening to LFR and I thought they made a really good point about the timing with specifically Austin and Ayton in the pick and roll, where Austin likes to go quickly and Ayton is a little bit slower in the pick and roll. And because he wants that pocket pass, I think there's a little bit of a delay there. And the timing has just not quite been there. And even with Luka and Ayton, I think it's getting better, but it's not quite where I think either side wants it to be at. So I think that's like a low-hanging fruit thing that is a reps thing that, again, ideally they would have gotten a little bit more in the preseason, but we're here now. They have to move forward with where things are at. And I think that needs to be one of the things that they try to focus on, is getting those reps in practice, getting those reps in games coming up. A big matchup on Friday against the Timberwolves. So I agree with you. Like looking at, so Austin and Luka combined to go 18 of 20 in the paint. And Luka carried that. He went 13 for 14, but that also means Austin went 5 for 6. So like both guys from just an efficiency, like shooting percentage perspective, were at elite marks. And once they got past the Warriors blitzing and trapping and zone, and got into the teeth of the defense, they were able to get to the rim or hit their little floaters, and both had several and ones or shooting fouls drawn on those drives. So I think that to me is like taking a step back, kind of the biggest positive overall. Like, of course, Luka is the son of the Lakers' silver lining, right? Like he just, his performance was incredible. Rewatching it again, it was just remarkable. So that is like the biggest thing of all. But I think to a lesser extent, like Luka and Austin, I think can carry this team to a degree offensively. I think they need more from the supporting cast, and those guys need to be more assertive and confident with attacking kick out passes and taking threes when they have the opportunity. And it almost felt like, you mentioned the playoffs, like it kind of felt like a game one feel out process where it almost was like guys were not uncomfortable taking open or even like semi-contested threes, or they just were like, we want to find Luka and Austin, almost being like deferential to a like their detriment. And I think there just needs to be a little bit more of a green light for some guys.
What's funny, what it kind of reminding me of, if you ever go play pickup, at your local gym, and there's a team that's been on, right? They've been on for 2 or 3 games, so they're in rhythm, and you just get there, you just pull up, and you're about to play, and you're trying to get in the type of rhythm, but there's already a few shooters that are hot that have been playing, right? There are teammates who know each other, and the Warriors are to the nth degree of this, right? But it felt like those two teams are in completely different spectrums of the continuity place, where the Warriors know exactly what they want to do every possession down. They have no questions. This is going to Draymond here. If you defend it this way, our counter is this, right? This is stuff that like the Lakers try to pick on Steph. And it was funny watching it, and I'm just going, like, it's going to take you 18 seconds to try to get what you want against Steph Curry, because the Warriors have been countering this for a decade. Not just the players, the same coaching staff. They've lost some coaches here and there. We took a coach from them, a few years ago, but same coaching staff has been dealing with that type of counter for a while the Lakers are kind of learning each other on the fly. And again, that's where I think the positive is. And this felt like what the second or third preseason game would look like, right? We have very simplistic offense, very much switch, like attacking switches, very simple pick and rolls with not much counters or second layers into their plays. JJ after the game talked about how they were blitzing their stack action, and he said you were supposed to get into stack 2. And I have no idea, have they practiced stack 2? I'm not sure. And so I think all of that is kind of showing where they can get to, but not a lot of time to get to it. And it's sad that it's happening now. But I think those are kind of the positives you can take from it.
I thought the defense, especially on the ball, held up better than it felt in the moment. And even then, I thought it was like largely fine. The off-ball defense, there was a lot of Steph had multiple backdoors against Gabe specifically, also one against Marcus. But that was a bit of an issue. And then there were multiple off-ball screening actions where one guy thought they were going to switch, one guy thought he was sticking with his man, and then they botched that. That was also a trend for them in the preseason. So And then with the attention that Steph commands, and also having some stretch bigs out there, depending on if it was Horford or Quentin Post, that is also drawing DeAndre Ayton up closer to the free throw line area. And then he's not there to protect the rim, and he's having to make some of these tough decisions. He was also on Kuminga a lot with, the way he was shooting. All of a sudden, that's like, you got to pay attention to him at the line. And then that also drags out DeAndre Ayton. If DeAndre Ayton's not in the back line, especially if Vando's not out there and if LeBron's not out there, all of a sudden, I think the Lakers have a real hole there in terms of, if you can get by DeAndre Ayton and where he's at on the floor, you're probably getting a layup, or you're getting a foul, or maybe you're missing, but you're getting offensive rebound or something. And we saw that several times. But overall, I think the defense, I was like, especially for the limited reps they have together as a group, I thought it was like okay for the most part. The offense, there's still a lot of room for growth there. And even so, Luka had 43, 12 to 9, and Austin, I think the numbers were a little bit inflated with some of the, late scoring, but I think like the offense, you see what it can be. It's just, you'd like to see them do it more consistently and be a bit more organized.
Yeah. And just touching on your defense, and maybe this is something for beyond the, beyond the block as well. But, this is my second time watching Steph Curry play in person, Jovan, and the first time I was just not covering it. And I think TV doesn't do justice just how much he impacts every inch of the offensive floor, where the Lakers, to your point, play 23 seconds of perfect defense, every switch communicated. And at the last second, you don't switch properly, and GP2 gets a, tomahawk dunk in the half court. Everyone's like, what happened? Well, one switch, was miscommunicated, because was it a screen? Was it not a screen? I just think Steph makes life so difficult, where, obviously there's other superstars in the league, but he's still so unique in that way. And I thought they would struggle against the Warriors, and I thought Ayton kind of held up better. His defense was ahead of his offense in that particular category. But yeah, I thought Ayton at least did his job, tried to protect the rim. The Warriors just make it really tough because they play a lot of small ball units, and they've been playing that way for a long time. So Draymond knows how to be physical down low, where to switch, where to blitz. If you pick up the ball near half court, they're super aggressive. I just saw all those things the Lakers haven't really practiced yet and haven't had time together. Those three, Jovan, DeAndre Ayton, Austin Reeves, and Luka Doncic played 20 minutes together last night. The preseason stats I couldn't really pull up, but I'm pretty sure that's close to the amount that they played in preseason. So this is all stuff they're going to have to find on the fly.
What about any outstanding concerns for you coming off of this game? Because the Lakers did lose the game. I felt the Warriors were in control for basically from like the middle of the first quarter on. It felt like Golden State. There were certainly stretches where it was close, and LA had the I think 13-3 run in the middle of the fourth to make it a 6-point game, and then Golden State took back control of the game. But Golden State was ahead for most of the game. I felt they were in control just from an eye test perspective. Like they never were really sweating the Lakers outside of a couple of big Lakers runs. So there are certainly things that need to be better, I think, on both sides of the ball. I think there are probably some rotation and lineup things that need to change. But in terms of areas of improvement, or if you want to be a little bit more dire, like actual concerns kind of coming out of this game, like where's your head at in terms of what could be better moving forward?
Yeah, I was really interested to see how this three-guard unit looks against a real team. And to me, they are just too small. Now the Warriors have, again, some mismatch abilities, right? Because Jimmy Butler of his own is a really great isolation scorer, and you have Steph as the entry passer. It's almost unfair, right? And Gabe Vincent had a great quote out of practice today. He said, if you want to go at me one-on-one, that works in our favor, which the numbers don't back it from last night. And maybe, that's a great attitude to have, I guess. But yeah, I think that's really concerning to me. And another one is finding these. It's really tough because I think JJ is in a tough position where you need Vando's athleticism. You need Jackson Hayes' juice, athleticism off the bench. But finding lineups where they don't, kill the spacing on the other end. And he's resorted to having these. He did this with LeBron last season, but he's doing it with Luka this year with these survival units, where he gives Luka these units where it's just, here you go. You're going to have to do everything. It was Luka, Laravia, Hayes, Vando, and I think Smart. I forgot who the fifth guy was. And it's just all right, Luka, you got to go be, Superman for 8 minutes. And that lineup was destroyed last night. And I think finding those is going to be a little difficult, a little concerning to me. But the biggest thing is we got to get Ayton shots like that. Like that's the most, like that guy has to average 15 to 17 points without LeBron James in the uniform to kind of at least put some of the responsibility off of Luka and Austin to carry such of the offensive load. Another one of my concerns is how tired those guys are going to be by December. Last night, it was Luka was putting his head down, getting the rim. Credit to him. That is extremely taxing to do consistently. Austin as well, putting his head down, going to the rim. That's a very tough thing to do consistently. So those are the kind of things are my concerns. But I think the main thing, at least going into the next one, is I want to see DeAndre Ayton be a little bit more involved. I think he needs to shoot more. He needs to be an offensive rhythm. He can't go 7 minutes without taking a shot because he's not wide, perfectly open. Like there's got to be a level of aggression that he needs to show. So those are things that are kind of concerning to me.
I think it has to start with getting other guys involved offensively, because it's totally unsustainable for Luka to carry that type of load for the next month until LeBron returns. And then, I think it'll obviously scale down a bit once LeBron is back, but like you can't play 41 minutes a night, and he can't be, I don't know what his usage percentage was off the top of my head, but I would assume it was in the high 30s, if not somewhere around 40%. So that is just unsustainable moving forward. They need to scale that down a little bit. And Luka's capable of that, obviously, but you want to just be like, you don't want to be doing that for the first month of the season.
No,
I don't want to say this is a marathon. I'm not going to go that far. You're sprinting the marathon, but like you do want to just be careful with overtaxing him too early in the season. That's how you can get an injury, or you can kind of start to just tail off by being a little too tired later in the season. So I think they got to be careful with that. And even Austin, to a lesser degree, would just his minutes were impacted a bit by the foul trouble, but he was also a very, very high usage player. And I think the Lakers need to find ways, even as simple as having Gabe or Marcus dribble the ball up the floor and initiate offense, which we have seen at times in the preseason. We did see against the Warriors a bit, but just those guys initiating the offense a little bit more, and finding ways to run actions that don't always have to be Luka or Austin just being great and beating their man one-on-one.
Yeah, JJ calls these utility plays where you have Austin and Luka and LeBron theoretically all running stuff together. And I think it just goes to a level of creativity. And again, creativity takes time, right? There's a level of time and work that's needed to be able to implement creativity. But that's something that I would really want to see. Because again, I thought, like with the time that they had, maybe, and Rui talked about they've only had 2 games together. Well, the reply is, well, this was your choice. This was by design. This is not
that excuse rings hollow for me.
Yeah, right. And so, but that's the stuff that and Luka talked about it. He said, well, I'm figuring out that Ayton actually likes it in the pocket, which again, that's something you would have loved to learn a few games ago before the game started.
Well, watch some synergy clips on him.
Right. Very much a mid-range shooter, and takes a little push shots. But yeah, the level of creativity I thought just wasn't there. A lot of times it was very reminiscent of last season where Luka stands on the side, waits for Austin to run his pick and roll. They had one play where Austin kind of drove into the middle of the floor, had nothing, kicked it back, and Luka hit like a 38-foot three or something like that. And that was one of the early plays in the game. There's also some plays where Luka set a screen because they were so aggressive on him. He gave the ball to Marcus Smart, and Smart's a very uncertain ball handler, right? Sometimes it looks great. Sometimes it's like, what are you doing? I think they need some of that. Like they need some energy. Our starting lineup is a little too finesse at times, even with as great as Luka and Austin are. They're very skilled players, and I think you need someone who sometimes is just going to go through the wall, not really try to find a way around it. I think Marcus Smart helps in that way. But yeah, there was a play where Smart ran a little ball screen, got to the rim with a layup, stuff like that. I just think they need to add, and maybe involving Rui a little bit more as a screener. He still looks a little uncomfortable in the short roll, knowing when to roll, when to pop, that type of stuff. All comes with time, but yeah, just a little bit more creativity, I think, at least, and you're going to need it. I mean, the next game is not any easier, as we just found out 5 months ago. Played 5 straight games against that team, and so there's going to be a level of creativity needed because Luka and Austin, to your point, just can't do this every night. Luka mainly, Austin obviously got his points at the end.
I think the other thing for me, and we've been kind of dancing around it so far, 20 minutes into this, I think Marcus Smart has to replace Gabe Vincent as the starter. And I think the biggest thing is if you're going to play more coverage, I get the Gabe Vincent screen navigation and the quickness and like he's a technically sound defender who I think even in some of those decisions of am I sticking with the cutter? Am I switching here? Am I curling around the screen? Whatever. Like it could have been better, but like that is typically a strength of his. He is a solid chaser and screen navigator overall. But with the Lakers style of defense of switching essentially 1 through 4, they would have Steph bring the ball up. Gabe is not really getting into him, which is the other thing LA needs to do better. They need to pressure the ball more. And overall, it was like there was almost like a force field at the 3-point line where the Lakers could not like pressure a ball handler past the 3-point line for whatever reason. But it would just be Steph dribbles the ball up, calls for a screen from Draymond, from Horford, from whoever. They bring Luka into the action. Luka switches on to Steph. And then that either allows for a second screening action or maybe Steph pitches the ball away and then he relocates off of an off-ball screen. We saw he shook loose for a 3 off of that. And it was just very simple stuff of, okay, you're going to start with Gabe on Steph. We're going to run some sort of action to get Luka onto Steph or Austin or Rui or whoever. Like, let's get Gabe or the primary guy off of him, and then we're going to run Steph around and get him open. And if like that was the Lakers' defensive game plan, which it's been now going back to last season of we're just going to switch everything outside of what I guess at the center spot right now. Then you're just negating some of the strengths of some of your better perimeter defenders, and then it does also lead to then Gabe is now on Jimmy and you can go into the post and you could go to the block and he can score 10 points on him and he could get to the free throw line against him. So I think if it is a switchable defense that they're going to continue to run 1 through 3, 1 through 4, and really like a passive switching where it's like the second there's any type of motion or contact, they're switching that. They're not fighting through it. They're not trying to prevent it. It's very much handing guys off. If you're going to do that, then you need more versatile defenders. And that's where a Vando or a Smart is a much better defender for that scheme because those guys can defend multiple positions. Jimmy Butler is not going to take them on the block and score with the same level of ease that he is against the Gabe Vincent. And this has been something we've seen. A game I've referenced constantly from last year has been the KD game against the Suns early in the season, where I believe it was the 4th game, where they make a big comeback in the 4th. And it was just find Gabe, have him screen for KD, draw the switch, and then KD just shoot over Gabe. Or if the Lakers send help, now you're finding shooters. So I think if the Lakers are going to defend the way that they're defending currently and the way that they defended last year, that negates some of Gabe's defensive strengths. And I think you have to counter that by going bigger. I don't think it's going to be Vando based on him being the 9th man on opening night and airballing and some of his offensive struggles. So I think the obvious one is switching in Smart.
It's funny. It reminds me a lot of when we had Patrick Beverley named as our wing defender, right? And you got it to when you see it in action, it's like Brandon Ingram is being guarded by a 6'1", 6'2" Patrick Beverley and just shooting right over him. I see similar stuff with that. I say Gabe's a little bit better of a ball handler. 3-point shooter's a little bit more streaky, but I'm with you. I would have loved to see Vando. That would have been my like preseason pick as, hey, if this guy is able to survive offensively. And just a sidebar, I think we need to stop with the threes. Like, let's get a dribble. Let's let those flow into dribble handoffs. Let's flow that into something. Like, I just don't like. They're trying to make Vando an open corner 3-point shooter. I just don't think that is working. I'd love to see it flow into something. Again, this goes into the creativity aspect of it as well, where Vando being open doesn't mean that's the shot you have to take. But I'm with you. The Smart units were actually solid. If you look at last night, the starters were a -24 net rating together. But if you put Smart into that, they were about even. Now, they didn't score that well. They did defend well. But I think it just showed at least that was where you were kind of fighting with the Warriors. And Smart had a positive, I think, plus-minus through the third quarter, while everyone else, I'm pretty sure, was in the negative. So he was having a really positive impact. I like his fit with them. And I think you can question if he's as good a ball handler as Gabe. Now, he's a little bit more, or he's more erratic for sure as a ball handler. Like, sometimes Marcus Smart decides that it's fadeaway Marcus Smart time. And that's sometimes like you got to live with those shots. Some of the threes he takes, again, are threes a little bit more reserved for a better shooter, but it's fine. Again, you live with the type of offensive stuff because he gives you. He had 4 fouls right away or something like that, and was getting into it with everyone on the floor, which again is the Marcus Smart experience.
You
And
need some of that. I think this group needs some of that.
I agree with you. I think they need some crazy in the lineup just to kind of mess things up, mess up the rhythm of the other team. And you mentioned the switching. Now 1 through 3, I'm with you. I think that's part of one of the reasons he's starting Gabe is that you can switch all those first 3 pick and rolls. But they don't want to switch with DeAndre Ayton. And so if you're going to have Ayton in kind of more, they want Ayton at the touch while getting back to the rim, which I think is a very tough assignment for DeAndre Ayton to do, especially with Steph Curry as the guy. But you need a guy that chases, that can chase over ball screens. I think Marcus Smart can at least navigate those while giving some size and back pressure. So I'm with you. It feels like Gabe's going to start another game. It doesn't feel like JJ.
I mean, it's Minnesota. Like the Golden State one, you could like sort of talk me into with the Steph matchup, but I don't see you're putting him on Ant. I think that's a mistake. And again, but if you're going to be switching this much, you're going to end up with
Right.
cross matches where he's going to be crossed onto Gobert or Randall, and that is a blatant mismatch. And I don't think, like, yes, it's somewhat of a mismatch with Smart, but Smart he's got a good 30 pounds on Gabe. He's got a maybe inch and a half on him, and he's going to hit you in the chest and box you out and like be physical. Gabe, I don't think is as aggressive of a boxer outer, if that's even a term. Like he's gonna try to make contact, but Gabe is 6'2", 190. Like that, there's just a limit to maybe he's 195, 200, but there's just a limit there compared to a 6'3", 230. Like Marcus is a big dude.
He is,
and I think we've seen him scale up and defend bigger players. And I'm not advising them to put him on Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert, but I feel more comfortable with that switch compared to Gabe, where I think with Gabe, it's going to be Gobert tip dunking all over the Lakers again, like Game 5. So I think if there's, you could frame it like if they're nervous about the optics or whatever, you can frame it as like we want to go bigger because we're playing a bigger opponent. I don't know, but I think starting Gabe would be a mistake.
Yeah, I still think that's what JJ leans with. He just be consistent. If Minnesota starts on a 10-0 run, then he switches it. The other kind of difficult part of it is I think JJ sees it as love spacing, right? He's a guy that pretty much, of course, has that in a high importance. Gabe, I think, just provides a little bit more of that, and he trusts Gabe to be a ball handler, to do the right things, even if he's mismatched size-wise. Another issue the Lakers have, I'm finding, is we have a lot of units where we play Vando and Hayes together, and it completely shrinks the floor. Like because neither of them obviously are threats beyond the restricted area. Actually, Vando, I'm not sure where, like, the restricted area even sometimes is a struggle for him. So that to me is where the floor really shrinks, and I think that's where JJ sees it as, if I start Smart, now my bench is even more. I have even more issues off the bench. So I'm wondering if that's kind of the thinking that he's going into it with. But I think Smart should start. I thought Rui should start over Smart when LeBron was healthy, but I feel like with LeBron out, it was a little bit of a no-brainer, or at least Smart, or if Vando showed that he was healthy enough and doesn't create your offense. But yeah, it looks like we're gonna go with this 3-guard front and see if that holds up.
Where have we seen this before? Well, the other thing though that you just mentioned though that I actually believe I have a counterpoint for is that I think if you actually start Smart and bring Gabe off the bench, that balances out that like Banshee lineup a little bit more, because to your earlier point, Gabe is a better shooter, or at least a more feared shooter than Smart. So I think looking at, because to your point, I haven't looked up the lineup data just because it's been one game, but that quartet of Jackson, Vando, Laravia, Marcus, and then either Austin or Luka, I do not like that lineup. I think you need to, I guess that's like the ball handler plus the Banshees lineup.
Yes.
I think that needs to be broken up. And I think you need to insert, I think Gabe should be in there for Marcus as more of an off-ball shooter. And that's maybe a lineup where you could get Gabe going a little bit as like the primary spot-up guy. But I also think you probably need to put either Ayton or Rui in there instead of, you probably got to split up that Vando, Hayes pairing. And if you do a couple of those tweaks, and maybe it is Vando and Gabe as like your defenders in the lineup, and then it's like Rui and Ayton and Luka, I think there's a natural balance there. And then the flip side would be like Austin and Jackson and Jake, and then Marcus, and then you figure out who the fifth guy is. Like I think there's a little bit more balance with that. So I actually think it does skew it a little bit too much toward the defensive end with the bench, which has been their preference. Yeah. And JJ's like this, like Banshees. I've never been a big fan of like the shuffling in kind of hockey style. One unit plays one way, one unit plays another way. I like a little bit more of a blend, so you have a little bit more versatility there. Of like you're playing the same style. Obviously, there's going to be differences with different players, but I think they've skewed far too much in the defensive end with that lineup. And to be honest, I don't think it's that good of a defensive lineup in general. So it's like, I don't think you're really benefiting on either side, to be honest.
Right. No, I'm with you on that. And a key kind of player within that is LaRavia, who's, a lot of people are like, wait, what is LaRavia doing? And I think that's a player that looks better around better players. Like I think his skill set would fit more with what the starters bring, and obviously LaRavia is not going to start, but I would like to see him in more units that have some offensive talent. Again, he's playing in a lot of units where the defense can really play off of 2 or 3 guys, and so he's not really a shot creator, right? But he was kind of part of that run that they made, I believe, to end the half, or maybe it was the third, whichever one it was, where he was getting some putback dunks, had a corner 3. He's a guy, again.
That was the end of the third one.
End of the third, right? So, so he had some shots. I thought he was kind of moving off ball. Defensively, I'm still unsure what his exact position is. It feels like he's a 4 on defense right now, just from the speed that he has. But another guy, again, I would like to see play with, Luka and Austin together, because I think he's more of a connecting type of player rather than here play next to the Banshees, as you talked about, and where it's him and one ball handler is the only guy that you really have to guard in that unit. And so again, that's another guy I think there's some ceiling left to what we can see from him that he can bring, because he was a kind of named as a big addition as well. I just think the lineups he's been in has been tough to kind of gauge his play, been asked to do a little bit more than maybe he can right now. But yeah, those are the kind of lineup things I'd like to see.
Do you see a spot for Dalton in the current rotation, or because of where the defense is at, it might just be a no-go for now? Yeah,
I want to look. I think Dalton led the team in preseason minutes, which kind of shows you like what we were building on. Him and Bronny, I think, led maybe the preseason in minutes. Both guys, obviously, Bronny not healthy, but Dalton did not touch the floor. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, this team's already defensively challenged, and you're throwing another guy in there. But I do think the Lakers need some offense. Like these units need a unconscious shooter. As much as Dalton can sometimes not really, be in the right places, they need somebody that can fire a shot and doesn't really think too much, is able to kind of, take shots that are under duress a little bit. I think they kind of need that with the way that defenses are guarding them. But it doesn't look like he's going to play anytime soon. I think they have their 8 to 9 man rotation set. But if their offense continues to struggle like this, I think he'll at least get a shot. JJ has raved about him all summer, said he had the best summer out of everybody, I believe. Said he's in a good headspace. Again, played a lot in preseason, which kind of showed me that he's at least a guy they're still thinking about. They just picked up his option as well. So a guy that will be on the team, at least for now. So I'd like to see him get a shot if the offense continues to really crater like this.
Yeah, I think I get him not playing against the Warriors because I don't think his defensive limitations would match up well in that matchup, but we'll see against Sacramento. Like we saw, I just spoiled my answer, because we'll see against Minnesota, because last year toward like the last quarter of the season, he was used as a 1-shift player, opening 4 to 5 minutes of the second quarter. And it was just a matter of would he get hot or not, or would JJ trust him for a second shift? So Minnesota, because I think they're going to really want to win that game. It's a playoff rematch. It's a team they're likely going to be jockeying for Western Conference playoff standings, seeding with. I think that's a team that they're going to try to tighten it, go 8.5, 9 guys again. But Sacramento on Sunday, I think, could be an opportunity for him, especially because that could be a shootout type game with that Sacramento team does not play any defense, but they do have a lot of offensive weapons. And between Zach LaVine and Domantas Sabonis, and well, Sabonis though is out, so I'm not sure if he's going to be available or not. He might miss that game. But guys come back against the Lakers, so let's just say for argument's sake, Sabonis is back. You got Sabonis, LaVine, DeRozan. You have Russ now, who we'll see if he can get a revenge game off. Wouldn't sign the Lakers jersey, and you got Schroeder, and you got some weapons for the Kings. So I could see that being a type of shootout game where if one or two rotation guys isn't making an impact or making their shots, like maybe you throw Dalton out there and just see how he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think again they need a shooter that can kind of complement Austin and Luka, and I think he's a guy that he had. I mean, obviously we forget now, it's been so long, and I think that traded or not trade, whatever it was, the rescinded one kind of messed with his headspace. But last November, he averaged 14 points a game. I believe started a bunch, was when I believe D'Lo or Austin was out in November, came in and was red hot from three, shot around 46% from three on a good amount of attempts. There's a shooter in there somewhere that, is still alive in some way. So I think the Lakers hope that he can at least contribute. Because through an 82 game season, you need guys that can come in and really take some spots as guys miss time for other injuries and things like that. You need guys at the end of your bench that can contribute. So hopefully Dalton can stay ready. Maybe against Sacramento, you're right, they won't play any defense, and we'll see how much we play in that game. Either a little 132 to 128 win or something like that. I'll take it.
I also like this is where some of the injury stuff is unfortunate, because I think Maxi Kleba and Adu Thero both could have helped in this matchup. In theory, Maxi as a stretch big, sort of as a counter to an Al Horford or Quinton Post. He's also a switchable defender. I think in certain matchups that can, like, you could put him on a Draymond, probably could get away with him on I think Horford and Post, but maybe even a Kuminga, similar to the way that they were using Ayton. And then Adu Thero is an interesting one just because of how small Golden State plays, but also the athleticism, the speed. That's a tailor-made matchup for him. So I don't expect him opening night to be playing like rotation minutes, but if he had been healthy in the preseason and we've been able to see that, that would have been like maybe longer term. I think the Golden State matchup is an interesting one for him.
Yeah, I mean Kleber is great in theory. I feel like he played the one preseason game, I think picked up 4 fouls in 2 seconds and just did not look ready to play a basketball game at all. But you're right, just that type of player, like Horford would have been great. Like, just I think he's going to fit so amazing in Golden State. They're going to be able to kind of load manage him throughout the season. But that like pick and pop guy, we still don't really have that, right? Ayton pops to the free throw line, which does help. Like, it does create some more space, but we don't have a pick and pop threat to the 3-point. To the 3-point range.
I mean, Rui, like we saw it with Rui last year, especially in smaller lineups. But I guess you got to have like Ayton in the dunker spot and then a couple corner shooters. Maybe that's then you run high pick and roll with Luka and Rui, though, depending on their defenders, maybe they just switch that and you don't really get the advantage.
What's funny is going back and rewatching the Minnesota series, kind of our best offense was Rui and Luka because they blitzed a lot of our ball screens. And so Rui was open in that short roll area. Now, he's not the best. Obviously, he's not super dynamic as a screener, right? Not a rim threat. Doesn't really, not a lob threat at all. But that mid-range area is where he likes to operate from. And they found some success in there a little bit against Minnesota. Again, that's with LeBron on the floor. So other kind of players are being guarded in different ways. But I think that's another pairing I think that has to find some relationship. Luka and Rui have to, I think, find some offensive kind of rhythm. Rui can't just be out there. And I think he took no shots in his first shift, hit a couple threes in the third quarter. But again, this guy's making $18 million. That's a guy that they're expecting offense out of. And I think that's something that they're going to have to work on as the season goes on.
He's the third highest paid player on the team. And I think that they needed more from him on opening night, but it's one game, so don't want to overreact overall. But certainly, I think Rui is a nice barometer for the health of the offense, right? And when Rui is involved, and even on the 3 threes that he hit, it was often on Luka creating, and there being some sort of breakdown with the Warriors defense that led to an open Rui 3. So I think he's one of those guys that as a finisher, the health of the Lakers offense will often be an indicator of whether Rui gets going or not. Let's preview the weekend's games, and then we will get out of here. So Friday against Minnesota, it is a playoff rematch. Wolves beat the Lakers in 5 back in late April. What would you like to see LA do differently going into this game? I would hope it starts with starting Marcus Smart, but if it doesn't, and they are starting this small group and switching 1 through 4, there's a lot on Ayton, Rui, and Luka to cover the paint and box out. And really, I think everybody has to box out and gang rebound, but I think particularly the front court guys, it's really going to be, can they keep Gobert off the glass? Can they keep Randall off the glass? How do they defend Randall on switches and whatnot? So what's on your mind going into the Minnesota matchup?
Yeah, what's funny is if you look at the numbers from the Warriors game, like we had the most success going at Al Horford because he played a lot of drop coverage, and so Luka was able to attack a very traditional screen coverage. When they were blitzing and stuff, that was kind of with their small ball unit. Well, Minnesota plays Rudy Gobert, who Luka Doncic loves to go at, almost like in terms of a personal way. And so I'm expecting a lot of that, but I'm hoping it's a little bit, again, I'm hoping other guys are a little bit more aggressive, kind of understanding they have to kind of take their shots when they're there. Try not to have not be as passive as they were against the Warriors. Look, this whole summer, what was the conversation? If the Lakers had a center, right? If the Lakers had a center, X would have happened. Now, I'm not sure Ayton changes the Minnesota series all the way, but would have helped, right, to have someone other than Dorian Finney-Smith or Rui Hachimura or LeBron James being playing center. And so I'm expecting him to go at Rudy Gobert. I'm expecting Luka to hunt Mike Conley. Austin Reeves will do the same. And just looking a little bit more offensive flow, I'm really worried about. There's a huge athletic gap here. When you look at the starters for Minnesota, take out Mike Conley, it's Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and Jaden McDaniels. Every single one of them, I feel like you can argue, have an athletic advantage at their position versus the person they're going at. Gobert and Ayton, I mean, I guess you could say Ayton has more. Obviously, Ayton has more skill, but I think Gobert is the more athletically gifted center. From there, I think we're at such an athletic gap. I think when you go to the bench, it's still that gap still kind of stays, other than really Vando. And so, but I'm just looking a little bit more offensive flow. And I think this Minnesota plays a little bit more of a traditional coverage again, that I think Luka, and he's going to be able to get guys open in ways that maybe they weren't against the Warriors. Maybe get back in transition, a little bit less turnovers, and hit your free throws and kind of help that margin against a very good Minnesota team.
Don't throw the ball to the other team. I think that's a good starting point. Yeah, I'm with you. I wonder, because remember, Minnesota threw the Lakers off by switching more in that series, and I wonder if they approach it that way, because for them, that was it wasn't personal to the Lakers, but it was personal to Luka, who knocked them out of the Western Conference Finals the season before, and he just torched their drop coverage. And when they did switch, because I think he was in better shape physically and healthier, he was able to, I mean, the most iconic shot, or maybe not the most iconic, but top 3 iconic shot of his career, because he also had the game winner in the bubble, is that dagger over Gobert in the conference finals. And that was with Gobert switched onto him. So Minnesota kind of lived with Gobert and Randall and Reed switching onto Luka, and then letting him dance with them. And they were like, if you want to take the step back 3, take the step back 3. If you want to try to beat us, like, good luck. And they held up reasonably well. He still averaged 30 for the series. And but it felt like even with Austin and with LeBron, it was a lot of we dare you to beat us off the dribble, and we don't think you can, or we're going to funnel you into a thicket of long arms and athletes, and we're going to protect the paint this way. So I'd like to see some more rim pressure overall from Luka and Austin continuing. It is different going from 6'7" Draymond Green to 7'2" Rudy Gobert, and just how the collective size of Minnesota. But I would like to see some continued rim pressure, and then defensively, got to be locked in on Ant, zoning things up on the backside. There's less off-ball actions, and so you don't have to necessarily worry about that. But I think a lot of the key tenets from the playoff series still apply to facing Minnesota.
Yeah, a lot of the switching, honestly, that they were able to do is because, again, there was no other center, right? So they didn't really have to worry about offensive rebounding. They didn't have to worry about a post seal. They didn't have to worry about any of that type of stuff because they were playing 5-out offense where they can really help at both the nails, right? They're like, if you want to swing it over here, we're going to live with a LeBron, little contested three while we take away the rim. And that stuff, again, you hope that Aiden's able to really have an impact against a Minnesota team that I think is going to, again, switch. Is going to put a lot of pressure on Luka, is going to put a lot of pressure on Austin, especially without LeBron. So the other guys are going to have to be ready to shoot and to score. But I want to see Aiden get his shot attempts up. I think this is a team that he's going to be able to do that. Gobert's going to come and kind of be a little bit more aggressive on Luka. We'll see if they blitz as much as the Warriors did. But I'm with you. I think they're going to switch a lot of screens and kind of dare Lakers to play. Minnesota also just kills us in terms of the boards and physicality and seems to just bully us every time we play. Now, I think Naz Reid is out for this one. I believe for the opener. He might return for that one.
It's a good recall. I'm looking at it quickly.
Yeah, so if he's out, obviously that helps a little bit in terms of the bench scoring because he brings a lot of issues in terms of size and shooting. But
so they're playing as we're recording this. We are recording this Wednesday evening. They're playing Portland right now, and he's playing.
Oh, okay. So I guess Lakers have the full Minnesota matchup. Yeah.
He would have gotten healthy for the Lakers game. That's how this goes.
That's very true. And so again, Minnesota's a team you're gonna have to be creative against to score. We saw it last year. Obviously in the playoffs, but even this one, Austin struggled a little bit against them in the playoffs as well. It took a lot of threes, and that's another thing. Like they were 3 for 15 from three, Austin and Luka. I'm not sure how many of those I like in terms of offensive process. Luka, you have to live with some of those. Obviously, he took 10 of them. I think around 7 of them were just, I'm not running offense with you guys anymore. I'm just going to take my step back 3. And so some of that I'd like to kind of maybe kind of work that around, get a better shot with it. And he can go nuclear and obviously hit 5 of those. But some of the process on that I feel like can be better. And against Minnesota, I think you're going to have to be. They have too many good perimeter defenders to just give them to settle as much as I thought we did against the Warriors.
One other note with Minnesota is they officially made the swap. Dante DiVincenzo started over Mike Conley. So that starting group just got a little bit bigger and younger and more athletic. So I'm even firmer in my stance of start Marcus Smart and not Gabe Vincent. But we shall see if the Lakers end up doing that. But what I would like, and this is just, I mentioned this in years past with the Denver matchup, like I would like to see a little bit more fire from this group for this matchup specifically. Like I think OKC is the measuring stick game for them, right? I think the West runs through OKC. They're the defending champs. They brought everybody back. They have a bunch of young players who I thought looked pretty good on opening night and like are going to continue to look even better. That's a team that's probably going to win mid-60s plus Western Conference Finals, if not further. So like those matchups, I think mean a little bit more just to see where the Lakers stack up against the best in the West. Right below that for me is Minnesota. And like, this is the team that knocked you out in 5. You were the favorites. You had home court. Most people picked you to win that series. There should be a little bit something extra. So that's also where guys like Marcus and Vando to me could be pretty important for this matchup because you need to match the physicality of a Julius Randle or even a Jaden McDaniels who brings some of that. So I think you need to match the physicality, and if they don't, like these are two polar. It's really interesting that the start of the season it's like two polar opposite teams that they're playing in terms of identity and physical traits, and like you got the speed and the pace and the as they said at practice, like the brain of the Warriors, and then you have the brawn of Minnesota and their athleticism and size. So like Lakers getting tested in both regards. They kind of don't like have either. They're not the quickest team, and they're also not the biggest or strongest. So it is like two pretty big tests from a physicality perspective,
right? And you have Anthony Edwards, who 100% believes he's the best player in the league, right? And he loves playing in Los Angeles, and he will embarrass you if you're not ready to play either. So I'm with you. There's going to have to be some internal motivation, and you hope from losing in the playoffs last year there's some of that as well. I don't know how we guard them. So like it's just I'm kind of focusing on the offensive end. Good offense is a good defense in this one, because I think we are such a below of the athletic baseline. Even with LeBron, right? You add LeBron to this unit, there is still, now he helps us a ton, but there's still a level of like athletic gap that I feel like we're at with Minnesota. Without him, it kind of falls over the cliff. So I think we're gonna have to have a good offense to really kind of mitigate some of those issues. But when you have Luka, when you have Austin who can get hot, obviously I think you have a chance. But yeah, Minnesota is just so big and have so much size that it's gonna be a tough matchup.
Gonna need another 43, 12, and 9 from Luka. And then let's wrap with Sacramento. So kind of joked about it that it's a group that does not play much defense. I don't understand what they are going for, but in the spirit of taking every game seriously, right? Like they have a bunch of firepower offensively. They do have a bunch of speed and athleticism as well. Like they are a team that can get out in transition and play with a certain pace. And we've seen like Zach LaVine is one of the top athletes in the league. DeMar DeRozan has had big performances against the Lakers in the past. Sabonis has had big performances against the Lakers in the past when they had AD. And so I think like that is a game I am penciling in as a Lakers win, but I think it's far from a guarantee, especially with what we've seen from this group up to this point, particularly defensively. I don't think like you can pencil it in, but they have to show up and actually defend and be present on that end.
Well, there's a saying in the NBA: there's no easy road wins, right? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as an easy road win, and this is in Sacramento, a place the Lakers obviously are very familiar with. A tough place to play, no matter who's on the Kings roster, right? It can be a 17-win Kings team, and when the Lakers come to town, they are ready and they are extremely fired up. They have a very strange roster, I think, to put it nicely, but it's strangely kind of impacts what the Lakers are kind of susceptible against, because they have a million ball handlers who also can get to the line. Like Dennis Schroeder, I think, destroyed us.
I don't know. I quickly, just to interject, we did not mention Malik Monk yet.
Yes.
And he's another former Laker,
right.
6 man of the year type. Like he's also worth mentioning here.
Malik Monk, Keon Ellis, who's going to be way lower on the bench than he should be, but plays well against us. Another kind of
Neat Clifford.
Neat Clifford played well in the game against us as well. No, they're. I mean, like when you look at the schedule to start this season, obviously the Kings and Portland are the two teams that you should beat before you play Minnesota again. Strangely, in about a week or so, but with the Kings, Zach LaVine is his own difficult matchup. Gabe Vincent talked about. If you want to go at me, go ahead. I think it was Zach LaVine scoring on Gabe Vincent a couple, preseason games ago. And DeMar DeRozan is another guy that I have questions about him in terms of playoffs. But in the regular season, DeMar DeRozan is a handful to deal with. So they just have a lot of guys that can really get to you, especially Jovan, if you're not connected as a team. Those like individual isolation talents can really impact you and get you. So this is not an easy start to the year at all. So if we can steal this, or if they can beat Sacramento, I think you can kind of and then you go into Portland feeling a little bit better. But hopefully they don't just take that one for granted, because that's still a tough team. Dennis Schroeder just dropped 24 on us, I think, a couple days ago. Now it was preseason, but it was our dress rehearsal. It was supposed to be the real thing, and the defense didn't. Didn't look.
They were, I think, because there's no lineup data with the preseason. I went and manually tracked it, and the starters were +5 in 10 minutes against Sacramento's B squad.
Right.
So a couple notes here before we get out of here. So right now, Sacramento is beating Phoenix by 16 points midway through the second quarter in Phoenix.
Okay.
And their starting group: Drew Eubanks, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Neat Clifford, and Dennis Schroeder. So they're going small. DeRozan's their power forward. I think that plays into the Lakers' hands, where this is a matchup they should be able to get some deep seals in transition, get out, attack the rim. Luka should have his way. Austin should have his way. This is they took 20 shots in the paint against the Warriors. I think that should be like 30, 35 against, maybe 35 is a little high, but 25 to 30 against the Kings I would like to see. And this group, just like the defense is gonna not be non-existent. And of note though, Portland is currently up on Minnesota. The game is in Portland midway through the second. So in theory, Portland's an easy-ish matchup, but they had a fun close to the season last year. They're a feisty group. They're athletic. They're big. That's another team with a lot of size. So there are no easy games for the Lakers to start the season. And I think it's easier than last season's start. Remember last year, they've had some really tough starts to the season the last few years. But especially without LeBron, I think every game, with the exceptions of maybe Brooklyn, Utah, Washington, maybe a couple other teams, every game is theoretically droppable if you don't show up. But Raj, I appreciate the time. Check you out on X. Where else do you like? SB Nation, Lakers Lounge, Lakers Detailed. Anything else you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, for SB Nation, I just wrote, kind of how the Lakers could survive without LeBron. I feel like they have the offensive talent too. The defense is still, up in arms. And excited to start doing some more video breakdowns as well on YouTube. So it's excited. Very cool to kind of be at all these games now and be at practices and stuff like that. And hopefully this is a good season. Last year I went to 2 games and they won both of them. So last night was my first regular season loss of this era. So hopefully they get back on the win column on Friday.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate the time and I appreciate you all watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video on the road to 50K subscribers by the end of 2025. Let's make it happen. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back tomorrow. I will talk to you then.